This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. In the late night, I passed through an alley and a girl asked for my help. "Sir, please help me. 2 men are following me." I helped her out of the situation and she slowly walked into my heart. But after 6 months together, I found a taekwondo championship certificate in her drawer. Exiting the store, it was already past midnight. I dragged my tired body home. As I passed the alley, a girl suddenly ran up and linked her arm with mine, saying sweetly, "Honey, why are you so late? I've been waiting forever." I was startled, thinking she had mistaken me for someone else, about to pull away when she whispered, "Please help me. Those 2 men are still following me." I glanced behind her and saw 2 sneaky men. I replied, "Yeah, it was busy at the store. I'm late. Let's get you home." The men hurriedly left. The girl released my arm and gratefully said, "Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without you." "You're welcome." She then fiddled with her phone, but the screen remained dark. She looked embarrassed and said, "My phone's dead. Can you help me call a cab?" "Sure, I can help with that." Once a driver accepted, I waited with her on the roadside. She took out a pen and paper, handing it to me. "Thanks again. Please leave your Facebook. I'll transfer the fare when I get home." "No need. That won't do. You've helped so much. I can't let you cover the fare too. Please, give me your contact." Seeing her insist, I finally agreed. Back home, I tiredly removed my prosthetic leg. Though I had it for 3 years, it still felt uncomfortable after long use. After putting it away, my mom came over. She cheerfully said, "Rocky, your aunt wants to introduce you to a girl, a primary school teacher. She arranged a meeting for you tomorrow." I felt a headache coming. Since my leg injury, my parents aged significantly. After they finally relaxed, they started trying to set me up. I knew they wanted me to settle down with someone supportive, but with my disability, how could I burden someone else? I refused again. "Let's skip it, Mom. I'm not going to waste anyone's time." But upon hearing this, my mom started to cry. "Are you trying to kill me? I never wanted you to be a firefighter, but you insisted. Now look at you, injured and still single. I set up a blind date for you, and you won't go. Are you trying to drive me crazy? I'm honest about your situation." They all agreed. "You have to go tomorrow." I dreaded my mom's tears. Every time she pulled this, I felt powerless. I had no choice but to agree. The blind date was set for the next day at 6. I arrived early at the restaurant arranged by my aunt. Suddenly, a surprised voice called, "Is it you?" I looked up to find the girl I had helped the night before. She sat down across from me and complained, "The Facebook you gave me was wrong. It showed as empty when I tried to add you." "Did you write it wrong?" "Not really. I had intentionally given her the wrong one. We had just met, so there was no need for contact. Yet, it was quite a coincidence to see her again." I made an excuse. "Maybe it was too dark. I wrote it wrong." "Oh, no problem. Add me now. I'll send you the fare." Her bright, doe-like eyes made it hard for me to refuse. After adding her on Facebook, she introduced herself. "My name is Haley." After saying this, she looked at me with shining eyes, leaving me a bit puzzled. I subtly avoided her hopeful gaze, saying, "I'm Rocky." After introducing ourselves, for some reason, her mood suddenly dipped, but she quickly bounced back. "Are you here with friends?" "Sort of." Haley seemed to see through my slight awkwardness and joked, "You're not here for a blind date, are you?" Seeing my silence, she chuckled. "How coincidental. I'm here for a blind date too." After looking at her watch, she added, "My date should be arriving soon. I'll find another spot." After a brief interlude, we both waited for our dates. Half an hour passed, but our tables remained empty. It seemed we both got stood up. Haley took it well. Once confirmed, she returned to sit across from me. "Is your date not coming? If not, let's share a table. I'm starving." "I think that sounds good." "Sure. Here's the translation." After dinner, I took the initiative to pay the bill, only to be told by the waiter that it had already been taken care of. I hesitated and looked at Haley. "When did you pay?" "Hee. I did it when I went to the restroom." "How much?" "I can pay you back." But Haley refused. "Consider this meal my thanks for helping me yesterday. You don't know, those 2 guys followed me all the way. I was scared to death. If I hadn't run into you, I really wouldn't know what to do, so let's just leave it at that." Since that was the case, I had no choice but to accept. After leaving the restaurant, we took the elevator down, but unexpectedly, the elevator suddenly got stuck halfway down, and no matter how much I pressed the buttons, there was no response. It seemed to be malfunctioning. I quickly pressed the emergency button for help, and they responded, saying someone would be over soon. However, since Haley and I weren't very familiar, being in such a small enclosed space felt a bit awkward. So, I took out my phone, trying to scroll through short videos to ease the tension. But as soon as I opened the app, a sultry voice echoed in the cramped elevator. "What kind of man can marry into a rich family? Come practice high emotional intelligence with me, and I guarantee wealthy women won't be able to live without you." What kind of nonsense push notification was that? I quickly turned the volume down to mute, but but when I looked back, Haley was trying not to laugh, making me feel a bit embarrassed. Fortunately, there was soon some commotion outside the elevator. It must be the fire rescue team. After confirming we were okay, the firefighters began breaking the door. In no time, Haley and I were back in the light. But when I saw the lead firefighter, I was stunned. Clearly, he was just as surprised. "Rocky, what are you doing in here?" My heart tightened, and I awkwardly smiled. Just happened to be eating here." After exiting the elevator, I wanted to leave, but Peter stopped me. "Where have you been all these years? You haven't kept in touch with the old brothers. After your incident, we wanted to visit you, but the chief said you moved. I couldn't find you anywhere." Facing my old comrade, I felt mixed emotions and could only hastily make up an excuse. "I moved because of my dad's job and didn't have a chance to tell everyone." "Oh, I see. Since we finally ran into each other, why don't you come out with the brothers tonight? They've all been missing you." As I hesitated, Haley stepped in, just like last night, linking her arm with mine. "Let's go, dear. We still have to catch our flight." I caught on and smoothly diverted Peter's attention. "Peter, we have to catch our flight. Let's connect next time." Seeing this, Peter didn't feel snubbed. Instead, he seemed happy for me when he saw Haley. "Is this your girlfriend? Good, very good. You two should hurry and go. Next time you have to get in touch with the brothers." I mumbled a few replies and hurriedly left. It wasn't until we were out of Peter's sight that Haley released my hand. She said shyly, "I saw you didn't seem too willing to stay and catch up, so I took the liberty of doing that. I hope I didn't offend you." "No, thank you. I really didn't want to reminisce with my old brothers under these circumstances." Thinking back, Peter and I had joined the Kuanan fire station together. He was a few years older than the other recruits, often acting like the big brother and taking care of us younger ones. We shared a dorm, went in and out together, fighting fires side by side as brothers. But all of that came to a halt the year I lost my leg during a rescue. When they learned I had to amputate, my brothers were heartbroken. They believed they hadn't done enough and hadn't rescued me in time, which caused my amputation. So whenever they visited, their eyes were filled with guilt and sorrow. And during that time, I struggled to accept my own physical disability. Whenever I saw the guilt and sympathy in their eyes, I would lose control, unleashing all my despair and hopelessness on them. They knew I was hurting and tolerated me unconditionally. But the more they compromised, the more it confirmed I had become a complete burden. Eventually, in my self-doubt and internal conflict, I chose to abandon everyone. Old comrades, colleagues, leaders, friends, I avoided them all. I locked my soul in a shadow deep within, rejecting the light. Over time, my world was left with only myself. Later, as I gradually recovered from the pain, I thought about reaching out to them, but I didn't know what to say when I saw them. They continued to be brave heroes, fulfilling their missions, but I had become a mere burden. From then on, we completely lost touch. I never expected to run into Peter today. With a heavy heart, Haley and I left the mall, but unexpectedly, the previously calm sky suddenly opened up with pouring rain. Neither Haley nor I had an umbrella. Seeing Haley's thin clothing, I took off my jacket and gave it to her. "Take a taxi and wear my jacket." "And you?" "I'll wait until the rain stops." Seeing this, Haley said nothing more. She put on my jacket and dashed into the rain. Only after she got in the car did I slowly walk into the rain with my injured leg. The large raindrops crashed eagerly against my face, cold, wet, and somewhat painful. But I didn't care. I just hoped the rain would get heavier, violently washing away all my insecurities. At that moment, I suddenly saw a familiar figure running quickly toward me. She was wearing the jacket I had given her. It was Haley returning. I was a bit puzzled. "Why did you come back in this heavy rain? Did you forget something?" Haley shook her head. "No, I just felt like you seemed unhappy." "Sure enough, I came back and found you in the rain. I'm fine. You should go. You'll get sick in this downpour." "It's okay. Getting wet won't kill me. But we should be friends now, right?" When she said this, Haley looked at me with bright eyes, sparkling despite the rain. I nodded. "I guess, since we're friends, I think having a friend with you now would make you feel better." Her words caught me off guard. Ever since my leg was amputated, I couldn't remember the last time I made a friend. Hearing the word friend felt strangely unfamiliar. I looked down at Haley. Her thin shirt and hair were already soaked. Her originally fair and rosy face had turned pale and fragile, like a weak, helpless kitten. Even her delicate features appeared more pitiful in the downpour, evoking an inexplicable sense of pity. At that moment, the sky hung low and dark. People with umbrellas hurried past, but Haley and I took our time in the rain, as if time stood still. Coming back to my senses, I quickly took Haley's hand and led her under the awning. Haley seemed reluctant. "Aren't we going to stay in the rain? I feel like I can last a bit longer." I frowned. "Don't stay in the rain anymore. Take care of your health." Haley blurted out, "You too." But I was different. different. Yet I didn't say much. I just got her another taxi and sent her off. But indeed, as she said, 2 people getting wet in the rain is better than 1 person alone. A few days later, Haley suddenly messaged me, "Are you there? Send me your location and I'll return your jacket." I replied, "It's fine. I can pick it up next time. Let me bring it to you. You kindly lent me your jacket. I can't make you run another trip." Seeing this, I didn't insist and sent her my location. Before long, Haley arrived downstairs. I quickly put on my prosthetic leg and went down. As soon as she saw me, Haley waved her hand at me with a bright smile. Besides returning my jacket, she also handed me a box of cookies. "Here, I made these at home. I brought some for you to try. Thanks." After taking the jacket and cookies, I was about to head back when I suddenly ran into my mom. Seeing Haley and me chatting happily, she approached with shining eyes. "Oh, young lady, hello. Are you Rocky's friend?" Hearing this, Haley politely greeted her. "Yes, hello, Auntie." My mom instantly smiled broadly. Good. Friends are great. Since you're Rocky's friend, come upstairs for some tea." I thought this was bad and quickly signaled Haley to decline. But Haley didn't catch my signal and happily let my mom lead her away. Once upstairs, my mom enthusiastically brewed tea and subtly probed about Haley's background. Seeing her eagerness to set us up, I quickly interrupted. "All right, Mom, she's just here to return my jacket. Don't waste her time." My mom was annoyed. "What's wrong with you? I just think Haley seems nice and wanted to chat over tea. Don't ruin the mood." Haley volunteered. "Auntie, do you have a headache? I could help you with a massage." "Haley can massage too?" Haley shyly said. "I'm studying healthcare. I can help with acupressure to relieve some tension." "I didn't expect you to have this skill at such a young age." "Then Auntie will have to trouble you." Seeing things getting out of hand, I felt a headache coming on and decided to escape to the kitchen to cook. By the time I finished cooking and came out, Haley had already finished giving my mom a massage. My mom happily praised, "Haley, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Why don't you stay for a meal and try Rocky's cooking?" During dinner, my mom kept expressing how good Haley's massage was. Haley enthusiastically said, "If you ever have a headache again, just let me know and I'll help you out." "Oh, I couldn't possibly trouble you." Haley smiled brightly. "It's no trouble, Auntie. Actually, I have something to ask of you." "Sure, go ahead." Hearing this, Haley smiled shyly. "I live a bit far from the hospital, and it's not safe coming back after night shifts. So, I'm looking to move, and I think your community is great. Only 10 minutes from the hospital. Could you please keep an eye out for any rentals?" Thinking back to when we first met, it was because she was followed by 2 suspicious men after her late shift. I nodded. "You definitely should find a new place. I'll keep an eye out too. If I see anything suitable, I'll let you know." "That's great. Thank you." After that day, I paid attention to any rental signs in the neighborhood and would immediately let Haley know. To avoid her being bullied or overcharged as a girl going alone to view places, I went with her every time. After about half a month, Haley chose an apartment above mine. After signing the contract and paying, we officially became neighbors. My mom was thrilled and often visited Haley for massages, frequently inviting people over for dinner. Occasionally, when she made soup, she'd send me upstairs to deliver it. I understood my mom's intentions. She wanted to set us up. Although Haley and I got along well, my mom's hopes were destined to be dashed. One day, my mom made soup for me to take to Haley. But just as I knocked on her door, the entire building suddenly plunged into darkness. A power outage. Along with the darkness came Haley's startled exclamation. Thinking something was wrong, I hurriedly felt around to find her. In my panic, I grabbed Haley's hand. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" To my surprise, Haley pressed closer, grabbing my arm tightly, fearfully saying, "It's so dark. I'm scared." I realized she was just afraid of the dark. I didn't let go of her, but instead reassured her. "Don't worry, it's just a power outage. It should be back on soon. I'll stay with you." "Okay, just don't leave." As she spoke, her voice trembled, as if afraid I would abandon her. In that silent darkness, someone was relying on me wholeheartedly, allowing me to feel like a normal person again. My heart softened, and I gently replied, "I won't leave. Don't be scared." Holding the soup for too long was getting hot in my hands, so I thought about setting it down, but Haley misunderstood and lunged at me, panicking. Didn't you say you wouldn't leave?" Her soft body unexpectedly crashed into my embrace, causing my heart to race wildly. Rationality told me to push her away, but the fragrance from her hair was intoxicating, making my mind go blank, forgetting everything. After a brief moment of indulgence, the world returned to light. The power was back. As Haley and I faced each other, one looking up and the other down, there seemed to be an unnameable emotion quietly spreading in our eyes. At that moment, we could even feel each other's heartbeats. Coming back to my senses, I finally realized how absurd our situation was and hurried to push Haley away. Unexpectedly, I couldn't push her off. Instead, Haley held me tighter in my stunned gaze. gaze. Her voice soft, yet a bit tentative, said, "Rocky, I actually like you a little. Why don't we give it a try?" Her words detonated like a fuse in my ears, exploding quickly. A wave of emotions surged in my mind, and some thoughts within me threatened to spiral out of control. To avoid losing control, I had to push her away with more force. "It's impossible between us." Hearing this, Haley looked disappointed. "Why? You don't have a partner, and I don't either. Why is it impossible? Even if you don't like me now, that doesn't mean you won't feel something for me in the future. It's impossible because it is. Not everything in life needs a reason." Before she could respond, I fled in a panic. After losing my left leg, I was surprised at how fast I could walk. When I got home, my mom saw my dazed expression and asked, "What's wrong? Did you deliver the soup to Haley?" "Yeah, I did." My mom continued chatting. "Good. I made it sweet and clear. Haley will definitely like it." Before she could finish, I heavily returned to my room, not even bothering to eat dinner. I didn't understand why I felt this way. After rejecting Haley, I felt so upset. I thought maybe I had developed feelings for her. That's why it hurt so much to suppress my emotions and reject her. But aside from rejecting her, I truly couldn't give her any other response. Because to me, she was perfect, but to her, I was merely superficially perfect. If I let myself indulge in false perfection to deceive her feelings, that would be truly wrong. So, I decided to cut off this little ambiguity between us myself. After that day, I began to deliberately distance myself from Haley. I left home for the store early every day. Even if there was nothing to do in the evening, I would stay later before heading back. This way, I could perfectly avoid Haley's work hours, not running into her at all. My mom even sensed that something was off. That morning, she stopped me and said, "Son, why have you suddenly started coming and going so early and late? Haley has come by to look for you several times these past few days, but she hasn't seen you. No matter how busy you are at the store, you can't neglect your lifelong affairs. I can see it clearly. Haley moved to our neighborhood not for convenience. She's actually here for you. I think she might not care about your leg." Before she could finish, I interrupted. "She may not care, but I do. The reason I've been coming and going at odd hours is to avoid her, so don't speak freely in front of her in the future." My mom seemed to want to say something else, but when she met my downcast eyes, she ultimately held her tongue. Even so, Haley kept trying to reach me on Facebook. I read all her messages and left them unanswered, but every time I resolutely ignored her, I felt a twinge of sadness. But thinking of it, Haley is the one suffering more now. She came to me with such hope, only to be completely rejected by me. I thought the distance between adults could be controlled by oneself. After all, when I left the fire station, I had successfully driven those former comrades out of my world, but I didn't expect that Haley would be different from them. When I got home that evening, I found Haley waiting for me at the entrance of the neighborhood. With the cold autumn winds arriving, she stood outside in a thin coat, the warm streetlights casting a glow on her, making her look almost ethereal. When she spotted me, her calm eyes sparkled with sudden brilliance. Haley jogged toward me. "Rocky, you're back?" I quickly took off my coat and draped it over her. "What are you doing standing out here in such a wind?" "I was waiting for you." Just as Haley finished speaking, a loud grumbling sound suddenly broke the night silence. Hearing that, Haley awkwardly covered her stomach and shot me an embarrassed glance. I sighed. "Haven't you eaten?" I didn't know what to say to that, because Haley was more stubborn than I imagined. We had only known each other for a few months, and I had never done anything for her. So how did she come to such a conclusion about me? And I knew that her elaborate setup to block me downstairs must mean she had a big move planned. If that was the case, I might as well counter her with a big move too. Thinking this way, I felt a bit more at ease, so I said casually, "While waiting for me, don't forget to eat. Food is the most important thing, but I prioritize you." Haley looked up at me, her serious eyes filled with an intensity one couldn't understand. My heart softened, nurtured by her, now growing wildly within me. But I had to harden my heart to shatter her illusions. After going upstairs, Haley invited me to her place, saying she had something to discuss. Coincidentally, I also had something to say to her. Once we were upstairs, Haley glanced at me several times, before finally saying, "Rocky, have you been avoiding me lately?" "Yes. Can you tell me why?" In truth, I hesitated for a long time, wondering whether to reveal the truth to Haley. In the end, I made up my mind to take this opportunity to end everything between us. So I remained silent and rolled up my pants leg in front of Haley, showing her my most vulnerable, most unbearable side. Below my left knee, there was nothing. I used to be a firefighter at the Kuanon fire station. 3 years ago, during the Texas earthquake, I was dispatched to assist with the disaster relief. During the rescue operation, there was an aftershock, and I was trapped under a collapsed building. In that emergency, everyone had to retreat first. By the time I was rescued, my leg couldn't be saved. Seeing Haley's stunned expression, a wave of disappointment surged in my heart. But I continued. After that, my life fell into an endless darkness. I went through a phase of despair, not knowing how to face this sudden change in my life. So I pushed away colleagues and friends, not wanting their sympathetic or guilty looks on me. Similarly, I don't want you to ever look at me that way, so please don't come looking for me again. There's no possibility between us. But after hearing my words, the enthusiasm in Haley's eyes not only didn't fade, but instead intensified. She confidently said, "So Rocky, you do like me, right? You'd rather reveal your scars to make me back off than say hurtful words to me, wouldn't you?" Sometimes I couldn't grasp her train of thought. Normally, even if someone didn't back down, they would at least take a moment to calm down and consider their feelings. But here she was, still nitpicking over the details. So I asked her, "Is there any meaning in discussing this now?" "Yes, it matters. This is very important to me." Looking at her, I finally realized something was off. "Aren't you surprised?" Haley looked at me and answered nonsensically, "So Rocky, you really don't remember me? I was there 3 years ago in Yangchuan." Upon hearing this, I stared at Haley in shock. "You've seen me before?" "Yes. Although you don't remember me, I will always remember you." Haley's gaze was intense, as if trying to see through me. She said, 3 years ago, I had just finished my college entrance exams, and I went to Yangchuan to find my dad. But unexpectedly, during dinner, an earthquake struck. I was so scared I froze and didn't manage to escape, and was directly trapped in the house. It was you and countless firefighters who came to rescue us. I still remember that the whole dilapidated building was in darkness. I was trapped alone in the dark for 2 days and nights. That was the darkest moment of my life. In the end, you, like a hero from the heavens, rescued me from the rubble. From that moment on, I fell for you. Hearing this, I was completely taken aback. I hardly remembered any of it. After all, as a firefighter back then, I had saved so many people. However, when Haley mentioned certain details, I vaguely remembered that after the aftershocks eased, there was indeed a little girl asking about my badge number among the rescue team. At that time, I was about to finish my work and had just briefly met her, encouraging her to regain confidence and overcome the shadows of the disaster. And then it seemed to have faded away. So Haley was that little girl from back then? She had remembered me for so many years over such a small matter? If that's the case, I couldn't accept her even more. I hope you can calm down and reassess your so-called feelings for me. In that kind of situation, you were in a life-threatening scenario, fearful and terrified, and I just happened to appear, rescuing you and leading you into the light, which made you grateful to me. That feeling is normal. But if you have fallen in love with me because of that, then you should think about whether you have misinterpreted gratitude as love. But Haley wouldn't admit it. I know my own feelings. As the rescuer, you naturally don't see this matter as significant. But for me, you are my hero. Is it wrong to fall in love with my hero? Can your personal feelings negate everything I've held onto for so many years? As her emotions deepened, Haley even began to cry. "Do you know, Rocky, I went to Yangchuan to find my dad, to borrow money. My parents divorced when I was young, and neither of them wanted me. That year, I got into college, but I had no money to attend. Even after working all summer, it still wasn't enough, so I went to borrow money from my parents. But then the earthquake happened. Do you know, my dad remarried and had a younger brother and sister. When the tremors weren't so strong, my dad and stepmother each took one child and escaped. But I alone was left behind in the ruins. Seeing those endless tears flowing down her face, my heart ached painfully. I never expected that the ever-passionate Haley also had a hidden fragility like mine. In the end, she broke down in tears, turning away from me to wipe her face, not wanting me to see her in such a vulnerable state. I couldn't hold back any longer and stepped forward to hug her from behind. In that moment, I forgot I was a cripple. All I knew was that the person I liked was crying. She was so sad and needed someone to be her emotional outlet. Everything else faded away. Gradually, Haley's emotions calmed down. I thought she would continue to cling to me as before, but surprisingly, after releasing her feelings, she became unexpectedly carefree. Haley wiped her tears and said, "I'm sorry, Rocky. Before, I was the one selfishly following you, but never asked if you were willing. Someone like me, who's not likable, not even my own parents want me. How can I expect others to love me? Before, I was just deluding myself. You can go now. In the future, I won't cling to you anymore, and I won't make it difficult for you." After saying this, Haley forced a smile and ushered me away. Seeing the forced smile on her face, I felt a pang of sadness, yet also a conflict within me. I didn't know how to face Haley. In fact, she was right. I had indeed developed feelings for her. Otherwise, I wouldn't have preferred to reveal my scars, rather than use cold words to hurt her. But even though I was now accustomed to letting my prosthetic leg replace the part of my left leg, the prosthetic was still fake. Without this prosthetic, I was indeed a useless person who couldn't even walk. Thinking of this, I swallowed all my comfort and concern. Then I'll head back first. You take care and don't be sad. Okay, Rocky, good night. Once the door closed, it completely isolated me from Haley. After this confrontation, Haley and I became completely distant. I no longer had to deliberately avoid her, because even if we met in the neighborhood, we would just nod at each other and pass by. Although the turmoil in my heart never subsided, on the surface, this distance seemed like the best outcome. But once my mom noticed, she angrily scolded me. Haley is such a wonderful girl who likes you, and you hurt her like this? You really don't know what's good for you. Do you think you're the only man in the world? Just wait. I will definitely introduce a good man to Haley, so she can settle down quickly. Mom, stop matchmaking and causing trouble for her. My mom scoffed, saying, who's matchmaking? Haley told me herself that because her parents divorced early, she's never had a home. So now she wants to start her own family quickly. From now on, you don't need to worry about Haley. I'll handle it. After that, she really contacted her old friends to introduce Haley to some reliable guys. In no time, she arranged a blind date for Haley. They were set to meet the next afternoon at a cafe nearby. Hearing my mom on the phone describing Haley's situation, I felt a pang of discomfort. It felt like someone was stealing my most precious possession, but I was powerless to stop it. If Haley could find her happiness because of this, then I should bless her. Yet by the next afternoon, while sitting in the cafe, my mind had already drifted elsewhere. I glanced at the time. It was 6 o'clock, just about when Haley would be meeting her date. Anxious, I realized I couldn't do anything else, so I decided to close the shop and keep an eye on Haley. After all, she had just graduated and was still naive. What if she ended up with the wrong person? Well, I might as well go take a look. Even though I felt my reason for going was justified, I suddenly felt uneasy as I reached the cafe door. In the end, I went to the convenience store next door to buy a hat and a mask, fully disguising myself. Before sneaking into the cafe, once inside, I spotted Haley's back, and across from her sat a refined young man. They seemed to be enjoying a lively conversation. I sat down right behind Haley, straining to listen as they discussed future plans. The more I listened, the heavier my heart felt. Just when I was about to leave, Haley suddenly went to the restroom. In that moment, the young man pulled out his phone to reply to a voice message. Darling, I'm on a blind date now. Don't worry, she should be a girl eager to marry, but with no real opinions. Once we're married and she has kids, I'll introduce you to her. By then, she won't have a choice about being a stay-at-home wife. I was furious. If Haley hadn't been coming back soon, I would have punched that jerk. When Haley returned, the jerk resumed chatting about their future casually. As I neared the end of my patience, the blind date finally wrapped up. After Haley left, I pretended to run into her. Were you just on a blind date? Feeling a bit embarrassed, Haley replied, yeah. So, what did you think of that guy? Did you feel anything? He was fine. Like me, he's eager to marry and start a family. In a way, we clicked, so let's see how it goes. Hearing this, my heart tightened, and I immediately raised the alarm. I don't think you two are a good match. Haley looked puzzled. Why not? It just doesn't seem like your energies match. Seeing me speak in riddles, Haley looked at me with serious eyes. But don't you want me to stop bothering you? If I find someone now, that should please you. I thought you'd want to help us get together. So, you don't want me to be with him? Don't overthink it. I'm just giving you friendly advice. Upon hearing this, Haley seemed to sulk. Are you saying it's impossible for us? There aren't so many absolutes in the world. I want to give it a try. She started to walk away, and I hurriedly grabbed her. But he's gay. I don't mind that, but he clearly wants to trick you into being a stay-at-home wife. If you end up with him, your life is ruined. Is that so? I thought. Haley looked a bit dejected, but soon regained her spirits. Thanks for the warning, but it's fine. Whether it's a stay-at-home wife or not, it doesn't matter. I won't marry the person I truly like anyway, so it's whatever. Now, I was genuinely angry. So just because I rejected you, you want to hurt yourself like this? Haven't you thought it's foolish to punish yourself for someone else's emotions? But Haley stared at me blankly. So even if I don't act out and find a good person who meets societal expectations to marry, will that guarantee a happy ending? Do you know how my parents got together? They were high school classmates, secretly in love, encouraging each other, and they agreed to attend the same university. ultimately achieving a rare campus-to-wedding romance. Everyone envied their deep bond, viewing them as a model of love. But what happened? Things still changed, didn't they? Their past vows didn't make their divorce any more dignified. So why must relationships conform to societal expectations? I believe enjoying the present moment is what truly matters. Maybe as life goes on, the answers will come. Her words shook me, stirring something deep within me. Haley's final statement awakened me. Were the answers we predetermined at the start really correct? Maybe, as life unfolds, answers will emerge. As I was feeling overwhelmed with emotions, Haley calmed down. She said, "Since you've already thought about how to live in the future, there's nothing I can change. So please, don't interfere with my life anymore. Your ambiguous concern makes me misunderstand that you like me. If there are too many misunderstandings, I might end up clinging to you again." I interrupted Haley. "You haven't misunderstood." "What?" I said. "You haven't misunderstood. I like you." The sudden confession left Haley stunned. "You? What did you say?" I stepped closer, looking directly at her, and said earnestly, "I said I like you. I've always liked you. I just acted in ways that disappointed you because of my personal reasons." "I'm sorry. Then why did you suddenly?" "Because your words awakened me. Nothing is unchanging. Everything will slowly change over time. So I thought, if one day you really find a so-called good person to date and marry, will I be at ease? I guess I wouldn't. Since that's the case, I might as well give you happiness myself. I can't guarantee that others will treat you well for a lifetime, but I'm sure I can. Even though my body is incomplete, my heart is whole. So now this heart, do you still want it?" As soon as I finished speaking, Haley's eyes filled with tears, and she dove into my arms. "As long as you're willing to give it, I want it." From that day on, Haley and I officially established our relationship. When my mom found out, she couldn't stop smiling every day. After starting to date Haley, I realized that her previous clinginess was just the tip of the iceberg. Once we were in a relationship, she almost always wanted to be by my side. Because of this, I no longer had time for the self-doubt and inner turmoil I had before. My life was now filled with Haley's presence everywhere. Just thinking of her made my life feel bright and full of possibilities. Haley knew that I was still troubled by my amputated left leg, so she was constantly showering me with compliments. "Rocky, your eyes are so beautiful. It's a pity I can't write poetry. Otherwise, I would write 100 poems about your eyes. Rocky, how can your cooking be so delicious? Rocky, this hairstyle really suits you. You look like a college student." I heard such praises from her almost every day. Over time, I almost believed that I was as perfect as Haley said. One day, Haley accompanied me to buy clothes. I tried on a long coat that fit me perfectly, and after paying, I cut off the tag and put it on right away. After leaving the store, in a secluded corner, Haley playfully wrapped her arms around my neck and asked, "Rocky, how are you getting more handsome?" Looking into her eyes filled with deep affection, I suddenly felt, "It's because I'm loved by you. Because I'm loved by you, all my flaws can become unique and charming traits. Because I'm loved by you, I can freely show you my true self." Upon hearing this, Haley was stunned for a moment, then her eyes softened, and she stood on her tiptoes to kiss my lips. "I will make sure you are loved by me forever." Epilogue 1. 6 months after being together with Haley, thanks to her companionship and encouragement, I let go of much of my past. She also encouraged me to face everything I had been avoiding. For example, to reconnect with my old comrades, so that I wouldn't regret losing friends after it was too late to realize how quickly time flies. So I found a time to take Haley back to the Kurenin fire station. Not many of my old comrades were still here. Only Peter, this big brother, was still diligently watching over everyone. Seeing me come over, Peter's eyes became moist with excitement. We brothers shared a silent understanding. No words were needed. Finally, Peter patted my shoulder. "That's great, really great. We brothers need to gather often from now on." I laughed, feeling as spirited as before. "Of course, I remember you owe me a lot of meals. Don't forget to pay up." "Don't worry, I won't forget you." After leaving the fire station, I felt an unprecedented lightness. Haley was genuinely happy for me. "Hey, you look a bit like when I first met you. It was this version of you that captured my heart." We exchanged smiles, and everything beautiful seemed to freeze in that moment. After returning, Haley and I started preparing to move. I had successfully proposed to Haley, and we had decided to choose a good day for the wedding. But people in love always want to be together all the time, so we planned to move in together before the wedding. As for the house, I had already prepared it. On the official moving day, I first went to Haley's house to help her pack. She had a lot of belongings because she had always been in a transient state, carrying important things wherever she went. While helping her move an old storage box, the bottom suddenly couldn't bear the weight and collapsed, spilling everything everywhere. I quickly began to clean up. Among the items on the floor were her childhood photo albums, teenage diaries, some yellowed letters, and many beautiful trophies and certificates. Then I came across a certificate that said she was the champion of a taekwondo competition in Ning'an province. Taekwondo competition champion? Looking again at Haley's award photo, although she still looked somewhat childish, it was clearly an award from her university days. In the photo, Haley was wearing a uniform, tied with a black belt, and her gaze was fierce and commanding. This was a completely different side of the Haley I knew. I really doubted that she needed my help to chase away a creep that night. Just then, Haley walked in, saw me holding her award certificate, and nervously said, "Well, if I said that the person in the photo is another version of me from a parallel universe, would you believe it? Hee, what do you think?" Later, I realized Haley truly didn't need my help to chase away a creep, because on our wedding day, many friends from her past taekwondo competitions came. Well, the two creeps that night became our groomsmen. I always thought I was the one in control of this relationship. I never expected that Haley was the true hunter. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.